this morning, and thank you, Praise Team, for what you do to be a part of that. I remember getting the Fruitland Baptist Bible Institute, and I wish I could tell you it was a glorious day, but it was not a glorious day. As I took inventory of my life at that moment in time, there were a lot of questions I had. God, what is this all about? Why am I here? Why is my family on the other side of South Carolina? And I'm up here in the hills of North Carolina. Why is the business gone that we had? Why is the home that we were so proud of and built gone? Why are my kids so far away? Why am I going to be washing dishes at a retirement center? Why don't we have a checking account anymore? How are we going to, how is all this going to work out? Exodus 17, chapter 17, beginning in verse 1, says that, "Then all the congregation of the children of Israel set out on the journey from the wilderness of Sin, according to the commandment of the Lord, and camped in Rephidim, but there was no water there for the people to drink." So here we go again. I call this God's divine design boot camp. That's what they're getting ready. That's what they're going through at this moment in time. That's what I experienced at Fruitland. And I tell you that story not to complain as they did, but I tell you that story as an opening illustration to remind us that God is always at work in our lives trying to develop us as a person and as a people. And He will go to extraordinary lengths to take us into His boot camp. And that boot camp, if you will, is to teach us who He is, how He can be trusted, how faithful He is, the power that He possesses, the passion that He has for His purpose to bring glory to Him, and His glory is brought to Him, then because of that glory, we're extended this incredible salvation, and God can have what we would determine to be bragging rights. We are His workmanship, His children. And unthinkable to us as that this incredible creator, all-powerful God desires our fellowship and our relationship, and to lift us up as His trophies of grace. He wants us to know Him, not just to know Him, but so that we can partake of who He is. And He can be our Father, our God, our friend, if you will. But there is a process that must take place. And it can be a difficult process. Some of you guys went through military. I did not have the great joy and pleasure of doing that. But you take this young, wet behind the ears, wimpy kid, and you take him out of his environment, and you put him in with a bunch of other guys like that, and these drill sergeants, and this huge government agency organization called Army, or whatever it was called. And they have about, Vic, how many weeks? 8. They got about 8 weeks to take them from that scared kid down there to this soldier who will put a bayonet on his rifle if he has to and charge into battle and do whatever it takes to win. That's a huge deficit to fulfill. And we are soldiers of the cross, as the song says. And we are in God's boot camp when we sign up. And God will take us into those valleys, into those desert places, into those heartaches and hurts to develop us and to temper us and to help us to be all that He wants us to be. Because life is full of not just puddles, but pitfalls. There are gaping holes out there that will pull us in and eat us alive in any given moment. And it's only as we understand who we are in Christ, as we only hold on to the vine, as we put our faith and trust in Him, can we walk this minefield that God's called us to walk. Because there's a lot of danger out there, but there's a lot of pain out there. It's just the life that we will live. It's just the world in which we live in. And God comes alongside and He does not waste any of that. These pitfalls that come in our lives. He's not going to waste it in the life of Israel. And I could say that, remind us of what a patient God we have. You're going to see that patience tested over and over and over again in the life of Israel. But I want to tell you as an individual that we test God's patience pretty much ourselves. We test it in our resources, in our relationships. We test it in our own selfish desires. God says, I know you can't do this, and so Jesus comes and He dies on the cross to give Himself for us, but that He can give Himself to us, and He makes all these provisions, and He lays His very life down, and He wallows in the dirt and the mud and the blood, so that we can know Him, so that we can go beyond ourselves. And He does all these things so that we can see Him and know Him and follow Him through this life. And so that we can magnify Him, bring glory to Him, and that others can come into a kingdom, as I read to you. Jude put it very well, that He can place us in His very presence with great joy in that day and keep our feet from stumbling. That's what God's boot camp is all about. I also told you that opening illustration because it's only because of those things, and some of you may go, oh me. It's only because of those things that I stand before you here this day, leaving this church. When I walked into this is Double Springs. That was, what's the name of that place again? Fruit and Baptist Bible. I'm just checking to see if you're listening. If God had said, Keith, I've got a great plan for your life, and this is the way it's going to work, and you're going to go here and there, and this is going to happen to you, and then one day I'm going to take you to, and you're going to be the pastor of the church, I would have said, I don't think that's going to happen, because I know that I'm not that person. I can't do that. There is nothing in me that desires to do that, or I was able to do that. And God, you made a mistake. And that's the way we spend our lives out here, spinning our wheels with God, because God wants to take us someplace far beyond ourselves and do things with us that we could never imagine. And we want to hang back here someplace and say, well, I'm just going to be a good person, and I'm just going to go to church, and I'm going to read my Bible. And there's so much more to it than that. And because of that, God will take us into these dry desert places. God will take us into places that He can prove Himself, that He can show Himself, that He can provide for us in those places, so that the next place He wants to take us to, we will have gone through the boot camp and we're ready for war. We're ready to stand and straight back and look the enemy in the face and said, let's go ahead and get it on, boys. This is what it takes. I'm ready, because I have been prepared by the very presence and the power of God. And that's what's happening to Exodus. And that's what is happening in mine and your life. We are now the Exodus people. We are now the children of God. There's not a different God who dealt with them who deals with us. The same God is dealing with us. The same God has the same requirements for me and you. And we have to decide now, make our choice just like they did. Are we going to complain about it? Are we going to pick ourselves up? Are we going to follow Him? Are we going to grow in Him? Am I going to do the things that are necessary in my life? Or am I going to lean on my own understanding? Am I going to let my opinions dictate my life? Am I going to let my emotions and my feelings decide every turn I take in my life? Will that determine my relationships? Will that determine my service to God? Will that determine how I go out here and affect the life of other people? What plane are we living on? Where do we find ourselves at this morning? And God comes along and we've got two choices. We can understand that we're going through God's divine design for us at this moment in time and accept that and adhere to that and buy into that and follow that and trust this God in it, because that's what He's trying to do, and He's trying to get us to follow Him on this journey. And on this journey, He has these divine appointments and things that He wants to do, because God ultimately is trying to do something here. But how easily we forget what God's trying to do. Number one, difficult circumstances have come about in your life. And for some reason or another, we think God's disappeared, or God doesn't love us, or God can't help us. And we turn to other resources or other areas, venues, whatever, and we try and fix it ourselves, or most of the time we try and get out of it. How can I get out of this? It hurts, I don't like it, it doesn't smell good, taste good, feel good. I'm going in the other direction as far as I can go. And we have a tough time understanding that God will take us into a desert place where we will find no water, no thirst quencher for our soul for the moment in time. But if we will not forget, if we will just hang on, if we will just run to Him instead of running from Him, if we will just stop leaning on our own understanding, but all our ways acknowledge Him, He will continue to direct our paths. And He is the same God who we will give testimony of one day, and He's the same God who the next day that will complain that, God, you don't know, and that you don't care, and you don't have a clue. How quickly we forget when circumstances that we don't like come into our lives. God is up to something in the life of the children of Israel. And you see that how quickly they forgot. So they quarreled with Moses. Now, you have to understand that the text gets pretty adamant at this moment in time. What's being said here, there is this progression that's taking place in their complaining, in their angst. Previously, they've been like, come on, you need to do this. Why aren't you doing this? They're taking it to a whole new level here. They're saying, we need water to drink. No, now they're saying, give us water to drink. Are we going to take matters into our own hands? How do we know that? Moses says, and this is where Moses fails a little bit here. You see, Moses is usually just saying, you need to trust God and we need to follow God. Moses all of a sudden says, well, what are you quarreling with me for? He's heard the animosity in their voice. He's heard that maybe there's something serious coming or something serious developing in these 2 million people that has kind of scared him a little bit. And he goes a step farther. He says, why are you putting God to the test? So he throws it back saying, now listen, it's not just me, but you got to remember who's ultimately leading this pack. It's God Himself. But the people were thirsty for water, and they grumbled against Him. Why did you bring us out of Egypt to make us and our children and our livestock die of thirst? And how quickly they forget the journey that they've been called. How quickly they've forgotten the freedom and what's been the cost of obtaining that freedom to bring them out of this slavery that they've been in. And how quickly they forgot the God at the Red Sea, and how quickly they forgot the God at the bitter waters. And how quickly they forgot the God who rains manna from heaven and causes a million quail to come flying into camp and land on their arms and say, "Eat me." How quickly they forget of this God's provision for their lives, that He is with them, and this cloud that is taking them from location to location, representing His guidance and His presence and even His provision for their life. How quickly they forgot. And now they're angry about it. They've gotten here and their expectations have not been met. Well, surely if we're following this cloud, Moses is out here, God is here, He's talking to us, He's revealed Himself to us. Hot dog, let's go to the next place. Let's see what this wonderful thing, we sign up for this thing called salvation. And if you listen to some of these TV preachers enough, you'll start believing this. That, boy, this is going to be sweet. I've been driving an old black Volkswagen, but boy, I'm going to step up. I'm going to be driving something sweet now. Because God has called me in, and He has unlimited resource, and all that belongs to God belongs to me. According to His riches and glory. How we skewer that verse of Scripture sometimes. But God doesn't always take you to the oases of life. He'll take you to those dry places where you have to look around and where you have to count the cost and where you have to depend upon Him. How quickly we forget God's calling, God's purpose, God's presence in our lives. How easily we hold on to ourselves and our stuff and all that we desire. How easy it is to get lost in this life that we're living. To get up and not be feeling good that day with a stomach ache, and that dictates my entire day. Well, I just don't feel good today, so everybody's going to know I don't feel good today. And I'm going to respond out here by the basis on the way. It just cannot work that way, because there is a living God who has called us to Himself, and who takes us through every circumstance, every difficulty of life, every pleasure of life for His glory, for His calling in our life. And we have to remember that we are on the same journey that they are. The same God is leading us. Different way, but leading us. Because He desires to arrive someplace with us in His very presence. Every nation, tongue, and tribe. And as we sit here this morning, it's easy to forget this huge, large, lost world out there. And hope that somebody will come alongside and somebody will do something about it. That somebody will stand up and change the life of this nation. That somebody will have enough backbone and enough heart and enough stamina to look around and say, you know what? Things need to change. And bless God, I'm willing to put everything and all that I am into it to see it change. Not just for our benefit, but for the posterity that will follow us. For those who come behind us. We're going someplace. There's an end destination. There's an end to the means of everything that takes place here. And if we're going to make sense out of all this, we can't just live in this and look at this and operate in this. But we have to look beyond this. We have to look to Him. We have to look to heaven. We have to look to a final destination about the entire outcome, the end of the story that takes place here, that we're a part of that. And if we can keep that focus, we're headed to, in a sense, to our Canaan, to our fruition of walking with God, to our reward of the Father. And God wants us to take every nation, tongue, and tribe and people along with us. He desires that all should come to repentance, that all should be saved, that none should be lost, is what the Bible says. How does that take place? It takes place because a Savior will come and redeem us from our lostness that we have chosen and call us alongside of Himself and say, here's who you are now. And here are the possibilities. How quickly we forget when the circumstances of life engulf us. When we get to that place and we're thirsty or we're hungry or we're hurting, and we think, God, I didn't sign up for this. I need more of this. And the whole time God is just saying, well, I'm still here. I haven't changed. Don't you change. You become the person that I'm looking for. You'll have to change for that. But don't change your mindset about who I am. Don't change your understanding about what I'm about in your life. And so that's what we see happening here. It's a reminder to us today that let's don't forget where we're going. Let's don't forget who's called us. Let's don't forget why we're here this morning. Because of God Himself calling us on this journey, giving us His salvation, the life of Christ Himself. And then it just continues on, and we come to the place of, I did give you another point, right? Okay, I forgot it. Thank you, I did do that. The passion of God. You know, as I was looking at this, I kept thinking, okay, God, what are you saying here? What is this about? What is the end of this short story about? And you get to 5 and 6, and it says, and it shall be on the 6th day, I'm in 16, let's go to 17. And the Lord said to Moses, go on before the people, and take with you some of the elders of Israel, also take in your hand your rod, which you struck the river, and go. Behold, I will stand before you on the rock in Horeb, and you shall strike the rock, and water will come out of it, that the people may drink. And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. So you have this incredible story about God's passion at work in the life of the children of Israel. Now it would have been you see the patience of God in this very obviously. It would have been very easily for God to say, Moses, you know that staff and how I used it and how it brought destruction on the land of Israel? I want you to take that staff and I want you to use it on the land of Israel, land of Exodus. Use it on the land of Israel. All these people, because I'm tired of dealing with them. They're not going to change. And by the way, there are Jerichos in front of them. There are Ai's in front of them. There are giants in front of them. There are cities to be taken. There are rivers to be crossed. There are decisions to be made that will determine the fate of the nation for centuries to come. God knows all that. He knows the failures that are going to take place, but in His passion for His glory. You notice I didn't say His passion for these people. It's for His passion for His glory that God's great patience comes out. Because this is a passionate God determined to deliver what He wants to deliver. He wants to bring a people. He wants to come to a destination of heaven, and He wants to have a people standing in front of Him who will know Him, who trust Him, who love Him, who He can lavish Himself upon. Who that He can love with all of His heart, who will be free, who can experience Him like we could never imagine. And all that brings God glory. Deserved glory. God is not an egomaniac. But as He fulfills the glory that He is due, we get to be a part of that. And He brings us alongside to bathe in that glory, to experience that glory. Will there be a sun shining in heaven? No, you won't need it because of the glory of the Lord. That's just a minor temporary light, the sun that we see. But the very glory of God will fill it so that there's brightness and brilliance and beauty in every way. That's where we're headed, and that is the passion of God at work in our lives. And it produces the patience of God in our lives. Even though, in verse 7 it says, and he called the name of that place Quarreling and Meribah, Massah and Meribah, quarreling and contention with God himself. They put God to the test. That's a dangerous thing. It will cost them, some of them, their very lives in the days to come. It says that the destroyer will eventually come among them because of that. And the complaint is coming from a heart that does not trust God. It's coming from looking at God and saying, you don't know, you don't care, you won't do anything, and I am bankrupt without you, and you have left me. And when we have faithless lives, that's what we're communicating to this glorious Holy God. You can't, you won't, you don't understand, and a whole litmus test of other things that may go there. So here we are on our journey this morning, and the same God is still calling us, still prepping us, still helping us, still providing for us, still walking with us. The God who we have to decide, will we have great expectation in this God? Can he fill this place? Does he have a desire to fill this place? Is he able to fill this place? Will he fill this place? Can we really believe that he will so fill us with his presence and his spirit that we will go from this place and we will love him so much that other people will know him? That we'll share that with other people? We make a decision every day of our lives. Is this my life? And am I going to do what pleases me and what feels good to me? Or am I going to please God? Am I going to walk with him? Am I going to be his representation on this earth? The audible, visible expression of the invisible God. That's the journey before us. So how's your journey going? How's our journey going? We don't look at the other person and say, boy, I wish they'd straighten up, and I wish they'd get out here, and I wish they'd get going. That's not the way it works. We take inventory of ourselves. God, how am I doing? God, do I really trust you? God, am I producing fruit in my life, which is the indication of my relationship with him? That's the indication of how your relationship is going. The fruit that's being born through your life. Are you producing fruit? Do we really trust this God? Are we really at a point of just saying, God, I have such great expectations for you and what you want to do here and what you're going to do in my life and what you're going to do in this community, in this world? I believe that so much that I'm telling you, God, that I'm going to follow you through every desert place, through every pitfall, through every heartache, through every hurt. God, I don't care what you do to me, I belong to you. And God, I'm going to pray a prayer that I pray that your will be done in my life, whatever that will is. And God, I want to trust you, and I'm telling you that I'm serious even to the point that, God, if you want to take my life, it doesn't belong to me, it belongs to you. Use it any way you want to. I am your bondservant. That's the place that God's trying to bring us to. How are we doing on that journey? How quickly we forget that truth in our lives, and how quickly we stray away to live our own lives. Father, thank you that you remind us that you still have great patience and great passion with us, that you are still a glorious God who looks for people to exemplify that, to magnify you out in this world, to give our lives to the God who's worthy, who's proven himself worthy, who's given his all for us. And now you expect no less from us. That we would give you our all, that you may become our all in all. How desperately we hold on to these lives. And how wonderfully the life that you call us to, of your presence and your power at work in us, and the life change that is possible. So help us today with whatever dry place we find ourselves in, to trust you in it, and to continue to give ourselves to you through it, that the outcome may be what you desire for it. Help us to see you, to know you, and love you enough to live for you and make you known. That's your plan, that's your desire, that's your purpose. Help us to settle for nothing less. And in great expectation, we call upon you just as they did. Be glorified. In Jesus' name, amen. Maybe this morning as you stand, would you go ahead and stand? That you have a spiritual need this morning that you need to pray about. You can do that right where you are. You may need somebody to pray with you about that. If you want to come and express that need, then we will have someone pray with you, along with you. You may need to come to Christ this morning for the first time. We invite you to do that. It may be that God's spoken into your heart and you want to be a part of this church, and God's calling you here at this place at this moment in time to become a member here and to serve here and to see what God's going to do here. So that's your invitation this morning. As God's speaking to you, as God's leading you, you step out of your seat and come on this morning.
You are Lord.